Happy Friday, everyone. We are going to be comparing and contrasting our story from last week of President Cleveland, Where Are You? To the story from this week of Raymond's Run. And we're going to be talking about some of the similarities and differences. And after watching this video, you are going to complete another practice activity comparing and contrasting the two. So let's get started. So as we are comparing texts like Raymond's Run and President Cleveland, Where Are You? At first glance, it feels like they don't have a lot in common. It feels like comparing apples and oranges. But as we look closer at some of the author's choices, we see that they are actually more similar than you might think. So our keywords for today are theme, which is the main message that an author wants to communicate to a reader. Central idea, which is what a literary text is mostly about in 1 to 2 sentences. And then finally, viewpoint, which is the standpoint, perspective, or attitude of a character or narrator in a literary text. So we've talked about viewpoint and point of view this week, and let's just make sure we understand the difference, because even though they're kind of the same words, just flipped, they have very different meanings. So remember, point of view is the perspective from which a narrative is told. The most common points of view are first person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. And if we think about President Cleveland, that story was told in third person. So how is that different than maybe Raymond's Run? We talked a lot about how the point of view of Raymond's Run was actually in first person. So two stories that are pretty similar, but their point of view was told in different ways. But when we talk about viewpoint, we're referring to the character's outlook or attitude. So different characters have different viewpoints on the same events in a story, which are revealed through their respective actions, words, and thoughts. So whose viewpoint was President Cleveland told through? Well, it was told through Jerry's viewpoint. And when we read Raymond's Run, this was told through Squeaky's perspective or viewpoint. So that is the difference between point of view and viewpoint, but they often work together. So let's just kind of review the main things about each story. So we have President Cleveland, Where Are You? And our characters were Jerry and Armand, and they lived in the 1930s poorer neighborhood. And what they did was they traded cards, they bought gifts for their father, and Jerry helped his brother afford prom. Some of the themes we saw were sacrifice and family. And the point of view was told from the narrator, which in this case, it was third person, and the tone was often pretty doubtful. Raymond's Run was different because our characters were Squeaky and Raymond, and this was told in a modern New York City. And then the conflict was watching her brother, making friends, and winning the race, where the themes were about sacrifice and family, which you could probably see those were common themes. And then it was also told through the viewpoint of the narrator, but this time it was in first person. And the tone was much more confident. So think about for a second, which one did you enjoy more? Did you enjoy President Cleveland, Where Are You? Or did you enjoy Raymond's Run? Well, let's talk about the time period. Well, Raymond's Run was set in a more recent time. A lot of the things that Squeaky talked about, we were familiar with because that's similar to how we are living. Where President Cleveland, Where Are You? Was set in the past. If you look at the example of a common hobby for Jerry and his friends were trading cowboy cards, which I actually put a real-life Ken Maynard trading card up on the board for you to see, where in Squeaky's world, this activity would seem very odd. What do you think is something that Squeaky did that Jerry might find odd? Maybe it could be the fact that Squeaky just focused on running. Maybe it was that Squeaky watched after her brother. Think about something that was important to Squeaky that would feel odd to Jerry. And if we talk about setting, remember setting is about the time period and the place. Squeaky lives in the city and Jerry lives in a smaller town. While both characters acknowledge that there are households with more money than theirs, such as the North Side, where Armand's girlfriend lives, and the families who can afford to buy more than one Mayday dress. So both characters acknowledge that other people probably have more than them, even though they live in very different types of cities. But when we compare our main characters, both authors explore how the main characters change because of the events in their lives. The characters' interactions with other characters causes them to develop and grow as we read. So let's talk about some of the similarities. Both main characters narrate their view of the world. Where Squeaky's voice is mostly bold and confident, there are still times she's vulnerable and gentle, especially when she's talking about her brother. Now, Jerry's voice can also be bold, but he's often more doubtful and unsure of his choices, especially when he's talking about his family and his own needs. Now, both Jerry and Squeaky struggle with other major characters in the story. Jerry's brother, Armin, teaches him a hard lesson, but Jerry respects him for it, while Squeaky feels challenged by Gretchen, but in the end, she also does respect her for it. Both main characters have strong beliefs in the way things should be done, and both Squeaky and Jerry triumph over their problems and learn about life from their experiences. And when we look at the themes, we see that they go through very similar things. The conflicts in Jerry and Squeaky's lives can be charted at certain stages of the plot. The events of the plot also allow the author's tone to advance certain themes. So both of these plots hinge at the moment when the main characters change their minds about what is important. They share a theme as a result. So when Jerry regrets not giving enough money for his father's present, he shows the reader that family matters most. And when Squeaky realizes that helping her brother to run is a far more important thing than her actually winning, this shows that her family matters the most as well. And all of this is contributed by the word choice. So both authors give distinctive voices to their main characters, which helps to bring their characters to life. They achieve this through careful word choices that create a unique tone. So let's examine some of the words and phrases that help set up the youthful tone and historic setting of President Cleveland, Where Are You? When it says cowboys are rock-faced men with eyes of blue steel, Armin, and when it says Armin threatens to muckalize Jerry, these are words that we necessarily wouldn't use nowadays in our time period. But these were often phrases that young men would say back in the 1930s. Where in Raymond's Run, Squeaky's chatter is nonstop just like her. And it also sets a pretty brazen and bold tone. So when Squeaky says, like I said, I don't feature a whole lot of chit-chat, but I must prefer to just knock you down right from the jump and save everybody a lot of precious time. And when she says she talks about no use wasting my breath talking to shadows, this tells us about her being a much more bold character than Jerry. The author's word choices help develop realistic and individual characters. All right, now that we've talked about some similarities and differences, I want you to complete the Friday practice Google form. If you need any help, feel free to reach out to me over email and I will gladly help you out. It's just a few questions asking about the similarities and differences between our two main stories. Good luck, and after you're done, have a great weekend.